Thank you all for coming and joining us in this most interesting session. I think that this is the most interesting session of today, and I'm trying to be very objective. We'll try to talk about four different routes, or four different roads that are arriving to the same crossroad. We're talking about technology. We'll talk about business, of course, the ocean, and as I said, we'll talk about energy, and we'll try to understand how those four different pillars or four different roads generate value for us, or at least generate opportunities for us to create value. But before we start with the difficult questions, I have very difficult questions here, just to warn you. Maybe a short round of introduction yourself, and please tell us about what you do in this section, what's your background, and maybe something interesting that you are now up to with regards to energy and business and technology. Would that be interesting?
Fair enough.
So
I'll start.
Sure.
Okay, so hi, my name is Yonadav Buber. I'm the CEO of Baromar. Baromar basically is an energy storage company that is in the bracket of large-scale, long-duration energy storage. What we're doing, we're using really, let's call it proven technology called compressed air energy storage, and we fixed one of the biggest issues in that, which is how you are actually holding the air. And the way that we fit into this panel is that we're holding the air underwater, basically using the hydrostatic pressure. It sounds a little complicated, it is, but overall it's pretty awesome, especially when the market is where it is today and the need is where it is today. And we're always saying that most of the companies today are powered by AI, and we are powering AI.
Thank you. Should work.
Is it? Yeah. Can you hear me? Good. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this exciting panel. It's obviously going to be the best and most interesting panel.
Already is.
Already is, after Baromar. My name is Ariel Porat. Good morning. I was the former CEO of Siemens Israel and also the CEO of Region Europe and Siemens Energy. You just said something interesting. I was thinking about the fact that maybe during my job, I actually lived in 5 different countries. And in each of those countries, the common theme was that once a certain boom came, the boom actually came much faster than all the permits and approvals required for the infrastructure to support this boom. But don't worry, I'm not going to discuss now permits and this interesting topic. I think the name of the panel is how do we fuel the data center boom? And I think it's safe to say that we can all agree that without energy, this whole data center will not fly. Obviously we have many, many challenges. I'll try to touch a little bit about the challenges and maybe a few solutions that we have, how to do it. Everything try to do with a big picture connotation of what we call the energy trilemma, which is how do we make energy affordable, sustainable, and reliable.
Morning, everyone. Great pleasure to be here. Sarit. And I have a mix of operational and investment background, but the most relevant one is in the last 7 years as part of DelekUS, which is a traditional oil and gas company, founded the venture arm and invested in multiple companies both in the US and Israel. Looking forward to share with you a little bit some of the angle of the traditional players in this market, which is evolving, and I think even us can play a very interesting role in that.
Thank you. We have a fourth person here on stage with us. It's the data center. Data center will play a major role in this discussion. We'll talk about data centers and their contribution to what we're doing here. How do we connect technology to business? But we'll have a few moments about that in a second. My name is Uri, and said that I'm coming from the VC background for many years. Feels like 100 years or so. And for the past maybe 8 or 9 years, I'm working in strategic investments, mainly strategic investments, by corporates into startups, looking at startups as a potential growth engine for the next level of the corporate. That's my background. I want to start with you, Sarit. If you can share some of those challenges that you see in this crossroad? Again, energy, business, the current situation of technology, and how can we take innovation into that? What are the challenges that you see that should and can be solved by innovative technology? Because this is something that is very unique to the Israeli market. We generate innovation. That's our secret sauce. Where do we find those challenges? What's wrong in the market that needs fixing?
So I think what's fascinating in what's happening right now is that changes in the demand and the way that we use energy, such as data centers, are actually reshuffling the whole value chain, okay? So, for example, and I thought it would be interesting to share with the audience what's happening even for us as a traditional players. We normally, our products are around molecules, right? We provide fuels. And with what's happening in the market right now, suddenly even someone like us started to think maybe we should make changes to the products that we sell. So for example, we own gas processing plants, we own facilities that produce fuels, and with those changes in the market, suddenly it makes sense for us to upgrade our product to electricity. We've never been in the electricity world in the past. Now, depending on location, depending on the feedstock, depending on what else is happening around the area, it makes sense for us to produce different products. And I think that we tend to focus a lot on the technology, and I think that with what's happening right now in the market, it's super critical to understand the value chain, to understand who are the different players. It's an evolving market, so to some extent, even for incumbents, they don't have this kind of advantage compared to others because the market is changing. We also need to understand the different regulations, what's happening, and it's constantly changing. So I think it's both a challenge and an opportunity to be able to analyze the geography, to analyze the situation, to analyze who around the table have a similar interest to what you have, and to be able to truly make those connections in your way to the market.
But can I double click on that for a second? Just, we need some secrets from your strategic discussions. When you're trying to look for the additional markets for you, are you staying in the same area code of what Delek is using, DelekUS is doing? You're using the same business models, the same growth engines, or are you looking to go out and to take different positions in the value chain? I mean, how far can you go from that?
Sure, I think it's an excellent question. So definitely we always try to anchor what we do in our competitive advantage. In this case, it would be our understanding of the geographies, assets that we have, relationships that we have. On those, we would build different capabilities in the form of technology, in the form of project development, which is pretty difficult for someone that's coming from the outside. So we bring our expertise, but we make a lot of changes to the business model as the market evolves.
Okay, thank you. Ariel, a question to you. Around the same area, but from a maybe more technological point of view, when you look like 10 years forward or 15 years ahead, what's missing out there? What are the challenges that we currently don't know how to fix? I'm not talking about improvements that we may look at as kind of a, as a growth engine, but what's missing? What is it in the plan for maybe 2035 that we currently don't have a solution for that can then be generated into technology innovation?
That's a very tough question, I would say.
I told you.
Yeah. What's missing? I think, first of all, in many discussions that I attend, many panels, many presentations, I think everyone talks a lot about the importance of generation, be it now a new power plant, a new wind farm, or something like this. And there's a little talk about the distribution and the transmission lines, right, and all the grid. I'm telling you, this is the bottleneck. This will continue to become the bottleneck. And we need to focus on this. And there's a lot of investments going this way, and we need to improve and also reinvent ourselves, so to say, in this arena. I try to always imagine this and think about this like, I don't know, adding another organ to the body. Not that I'm Frankenstein, but if I add just another organ to the body and I don't increase the number of veins and also the robustness of the veins, the organ will not work because there's no blood going in into the organ, of course. So I think this is something that we really need to focus on, the entire grid. Now, if we look, how does it play around data centers and everything which is coming towards us by 2035, actually even earlier, I would say if we take a step back and look at the energy demand worldwide, it's important to understand if you look at the different researchers of the different companies, you can see that even before the big AI data center boom, everyone forecasted that by 2040 the demand for electricity will increase by at least 50%. These are huge numbers, right? This is happening due to all the trends that we're all familiar with, of course, be it urbanization, electrification, the increase in population, our living standards, etc. And now if we zoom into the data centers, then exactly those companies are saying now, and you mentioned also a few numbers before, I saw a few researchers that actually said that by 2030, the demand for electricity from data centers will amount to 4% of global demand. This is huge. And when we talk about data centers, we talk about a lot of electricity which is needed, and it also needs to be constant in high quality, let's call it like this. Now, if you add also renewables to the mix, it's becoming even more complicated. And all of this is happening in many places that the grid was not even designed for. So the grid cannot even cope with such a situation unless we change it. So maybe just a few of the challenges that I see in the grid side, if that's okay. I would say, first of all, in many of the economies, also developed economies around the world, we have an issue or a challenge of an aging infrastructure. This means we need to either replace it or we need to upgrade it. Now, as I said before, if you add the mix, if you add more and more renewables to the energy mix, the grid needs to be much more robust. Again, the veins topic and other reasons why, because the renewables are unpredicted. So if you take this, and by the way, the current situation in most places that I know is that the grid and also the substations are working very close to their capacity. Now, if you add another consumer, such as the data centers, which require a lot of data, a lot of electricity, and also high quality, we actually create risk for the existing consumers.
Who's working on those solutions? Who should we, follow in order to understand what's happening in those areas? Which companies, which governments, what areas of startups?
I think, first of all, what I am familiar with is mainly the European Union is working on it. They're trying to change regulation, but there are many issues with the regulation that I can also discuss about. So they're trying to work together with the big companies, be it Siemens Energy or GE or Mitsubishi or the others, trying to understand what is actually needed from a regulation point of view, trying to attract investors. We also need to understand that investors want to invest when they have certainty. If we look at the IRA, now again, maybe not the best time to look at the IRA, but the IRA, when it was published, it was very easy. It said, for a certain amount of time, you get tax credits. Very easy to understand. What the Europeans did is something completely different, which I'm not even sure, that they understand what they did. No kidding, but it's very, very complex. Okay. So I think first of all, what we need to do is utilize our existing infrastructure, even though it's aging. And I'm talking about distribution and transmission and generation assets that we have. So as an example, before we open a new power plant, we could upgrade the H gas turbine to an HL, much more efficient, gives more energy. We talk a lot about AI, so of course we should utilize AI for load leveling and electricity, and of course all the energy that we do harvest, we need to ensure that it doesn't go to waste. Just imagine a very windy day, I don't know, in the UK, if there's no connection, and they don't store the energy, or they don't transfer it via HVDC to continental Europe, then it goes to waste.
Yeah, I think that what we have now is an additional guest here in our panel. His name is storage. And we're talking about two types of storage of data in those data centers, and storage of electricity and energy. And with this new panelist with us, I want to ask you, Yonadav, actually two questions, a short one and a long one. The short question is, can solution come from the ocean? And the long question is, we know that, the lithium-ion batteries, the prices are going down, and maybe we don't need anything else beyond those lithium-ion batteries. So, the two questions, please.
Sure. So, solution will come from the most economical place. Basically, economy always wins, and I'm always a capitalist by heart and by education. So, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it will come from the ocean, from the air, or from chemicals, but it will come. I mean, there is a need, right? There's obviously a need for energy, and I'm sure, I don't know, for example, how many people here in the crowd know the term curtailment. For example, how much energy even Israel right now is being shipped into trying to go inside the grid, but cannot go in, so it goes inside the ground. In Israel, it's relatively small. In Europe, in the United States, and in Australia, in Japan, it's a tremendous problem. So it's not that there's so much a lack of energy, there's a need to basically match supply and demand. And batteries will always be. I mean, it's exactly like telling me that there is one type of car which is fantastic, so why don't everybody buy this car? There are different, let's call it, benefits for different solutions. Exactly like there are different ways to generate electricity from gas, from coal, from diesel, from solar, from wind, from water. It depends on the place and depends, but at the end of the day, on the pricing. And on our end, what Baromar is doing, even at this stage where we are, we're already discussing projects for tens of gigawatt hour of basically energy storage. So you see that the need is really acute, and if there is a need and the technology is ready, then yeah, all the panelist member here mentioned regulation, but here's the sweet spot, or at least where we are. I mean, when you're coming with a solution which doesn't rely on, let's say, tax benefits or incentive, which is 100% economical today, which can actually solve the problem which is basically degrading right now the entire system. Anyone, doesn't matter where you are on the political map, doesn't matter where you are in the world, will really want to embrace this. And our experience so far when we're talking to different regulators was extremely positive. Not in all cases, but overall extremely positive.
We are all, big believers of the blue economy, and we all want to be very much into it. And we share, our belief that the ocean and the sea will generate value for us. But I still need some additional information from you about your predictions, because your company, your technologies are very much based on the capabilities of the ocean, capabilities of the sea. And we are very curious about the ability of the ocean environment to become kind of an ecosystem with technology, with energy, with the data that is needed, and of course the data centers.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it's great follow-up. So, I mean, when you're looking at blue economy, there are different ways how to look at this kind of, title. When we're looking at Baromar and blue economy, we're saying how do you utilize the actual values of the ocean, in an economic way, in a way to better integrate inside the regular economy, not the blue economy. So what Baromar basically is doing is saying, look, almost I think 80% of the world power plants are right next to the ocean, which means that the grid itself, about 80% of the world grid is right next to the ocean. When we are utilizing our system, our land-based space is rather small, and what we're doing is that we're utilizing the hydrostatic pressure where we're putting tanks inside the water at a very, very deep depth. Simply using the actual values of the depth of the water as something like to hold the pressure. This creates, by the way, a fantastic chain of events where we can, first of all, actually help the environment and not harm it. We can utilize the isobaric pressure in order to create a very efficient system, which has always been a problem in compressed air energy storage. And by that definition, by the way, we can also tailor-made a product which right now cannot be tailor-made, which is energy storage, to the final consumer, basically giving them what they need, when they need, for the time that they need. And that is, by the way, I think it's a showcase for blue economy because it's just that. It utilizes the value of the ocean in a very economic way without harming it and bringing economic benefits without any subsidies.
So it's kind of a shift of the just-in-time concept from media to energy?
Pretty much, yeah. I like that, yeah.
Cool. So back to you, a question about the fact that you are Israeli, working with many Israeli startups, and you're familiar with the Israeli ecosystem, but working with an American company, and we understand that some of those motivations and regulations are coming from Europe. So it's kind of an intercultural environment here. And my question to you is with regards to the cultural issues and regulation issues, which are different in different locations. How do you bridge that? How do you manage those differences of needs? And you know what, everything was changed like a year ago. Once Trump got into office, things changed again. So how do you manage the dependencies of regulations and culture so much?
Sure. So in Delek specifically, we focus on the US as a target market. And we enjoy very much working with Israeli companies. We like the energy, we like the being upfront, but I still think that a lot of work needs to be done in order to be well educated in what's going on, and the same goes to us. So we invest heavily in being up to speed and well educated with all the changes in regulation, and there are many of them. So even for us as an incumbent and someone who's working in the industry, it's a constant work to be up to speed and be in front of financial supporters for projects. You truly need to know the bits and the bytes, and going back to the comment that was made over here, economic wins. With all the incentives, everything is nice, but the bottom line is how do you build the economics, and the economics is very much geography specific. One of the challenges in the US that it's a fragment market, and different regulations are happening in different places. So I think supplementing a lot of the good things that we have in the Israeli culture, definitely being up to speed and know your stuff when you come to a specific market is crucial. And yes, Europe is very different from the US, and I would definitely say, for example, that I'm not well equipped to understand the Europe market, but I am equipped to understand the US market.
But unlike other technologies that are very familiar to the Israeli entrepreneurs, which are not using the supply chain or not needing the supply chain and the local presence in the target markets, here when you're talking about energy transmission, dependency of location is very strong. So can Israeli startups succeed in this market as well?
I think they need to build the right advisory, the right knowledge. Definitely Israeli
right
can...
investors? Right shareholders?
It's investors, it's advisors. It's a heavy mission, not less important than knowing your technology.
Right.
Sometimes even more important, and I think there is a lot of nuances related to politics and culture coming into a very traditional energy industry. Even myself, understanding, for example, that safety, serviceability sometimes have even a higher importance than winning another, 10% of efficiency in the technology.
Yeah.
So understanding those nuances, I think, is crucial and will serve well when you speak to.
And you're optimistic on that, from the Israeli perspective.
I think the people that win are the ones that doing this backup work, hard work, and you cannot win without it.
I'll take it as a yes.
Yeah. I do think, by the way, there is a huge competition when I'm looking on Israeli companies compared to US companies. Sometimes people that are coming from the industry and they are based in the US, it's easier for them to swim in the pond. But I do think that with the hard work, you definitely, as an Israeli company, win as well.
Okay, got that. Ariel, a question to you based on something that you said before and got me curious. You said something about blending different types of energy, maybe renewable energy with fossil-based energy. And I'll tell you from the Israeli perspective, we, 50 years ago, we had nothing. And then we had to invent technology in order to be something. Then the gas came in, and the map changed again. And now what we are looking at is a combination of fossil-based energy, or the old energy, with advanced types of fuel, of energy sources.
Yeah, I think first of all, the important thing is that nobody understands or nobody knows exactly what the mixture of energy would look like in the future, and I believe there's no silver bullet. There's no one specific type. It will be a mixture. I don't know the percentages between the mixture, between different components, but it will be a mixture. If we look at, I personally believe that we need to introduce more and more renewables to the grid, and very, very fast. If you look at everything which is happening in the world, the floods, the lack of the fires, and everything, and the earthquakes, I don't know. I think it's very evident that we need to become more and more sustainable very, very fast. Otherwise, I don't think the data centers and AI would also save us in this situation. So just to if I give you an example about Europe, in order for them to reach the 2050 goals that they have for sustainability, they need to increase the renewable share by, 3 to 4 times. It's massive, it's huge. And renewables are great, but renewables are unpredictable. They're not on their own, they're not reliable enough. So the wind blows and then it stops blowing, and there's a sun and suddenly the cloud comes, and then there's sun again. So if you add more and more renewables, it makes fluctuations in the grid, and it gives shock waves to the grid, which can actually hinder it. So we need something that will stabilize the grid. Currently, the best thing that could stabilize the grid, in my view, is natural gas. So we need to continue with natural gas as a bridging technology for the next, if you ask me, at least decade. Natural gas can run on baseload. It helps stabilize the grid. It's much less contaminating than coal. So all the coal needs to, in my view, be converted at least to natural gas. And what we should do in the meantime is also consider what the future energies would look like, as you mentioned. And if we think, for example, that hydrogen will become a certain part of the mix, which I believe so, then we should also prepare for it. We should make our gas turbines H2 ready. So this means that, in the future, once it becomes economically viable, as we said before, economy wins, when it becomes economically viable to produce a lot of hydrogen, we could use a mixture to put this together.
You said hydrogen, and I realized that actually, just a year ago, hydrogen was a very good friend of all of us. And we all talked about hydrogen and what can hydrogen do for us in terms of storage. We looked at it as not only a solution for the storage issue, but also as a standalone market with its own business models and potential value creation for different types of companies. And maybe this is a question for you, Yonadav, if you're looking at the storage and the way that the market changed so dramatically in 4-5 years, then the question to you, can we see different types of energy, removed from the map? Are we seeing major changes ahead of us? Or do you think that what we are seeing at the moment, do we have the right players in the market on board already? Or are we still looking for the winner to come in and take it all?
That's a tough question again. Kudos. Let's, if it's okay, I'll give you a little step back on that. I mean, the only reason why anybody looked at renewables energy in the beginning was not because to save the environment. As someone who developed power plants in the past, the only reason behind that was to reduce electricity prices. We simply said, you know what, if we're burning something, then we need to cover that cost. If you're looking, for example, at the power purchase agreement, 60% of a power purchase agreement is the fuel that you burn. So the idea behind renewable was the following: if we don't burn anything, we'll have cheaper electricity. And again, economy wins, right? So we basically had the entire world goes into renewable in different ways, in beginning with subsidies. Now you have, for example, power purchase agreements, which are much lower than any other energy product, right, energy producer. But then we created the other problem, which is, as you mentioned, matching supply and demand. And when you match supply and demand, obviously there are different solutions for that, like in any other market. But in the energy market, it becomes tricky because if your solution is expensive, then basically you're creating global inflation, right? You're hurting just about everybody in the market, from the simple guy that is putting, the lights on in the kitchen, to any factory or data centers, right, which actually need this power. So energy storage is becoming basically, how should I say it? It needs to replace the natural gas which was in the system. It needs to replace the coal pile which is in the backyard of a power plant. But this is what it is. I mean, any solution, and there will be a complete pile of solutions for that, I'm sure. Again, Baromar is not going to be a unique case. Right. But any solution basically has to address that problem. It has to address that segment. It needs to be cheap. It needs to be very, very large. And it cannot, or at least in my opinion, right, and I think that was the major issue with hydrogen, it cannot expect to basically have on it an entire infrastructure system which is completely separate to the existing system. I think that was the issue. And I think, by the way, this is where the market, and the good thing about it, by the way, as you mentioned, is that the need is so huge. Yeah. And when there is such a global need, I think that solutions will come very, very fast.
Very much agreed. Let's go for a last very short round. Just look at the crowd. You see so many entrepreneurs here, and founders and investors and the trendsetters and journalists. And my question to you guys in like 2 sentences each: who should approach you? Who are those people in the crowd should approach you? Who would you like to meet and have a word with? Maybe start with you, Ariel. Who should approach you afterwards?
Who should approach me? So first of all, I'm not working for Siemens Energy anymore currently. So, but I would really enjoy discussing about energy management, be it at facilities at home, the entire management system at home, and the coupling of transmission or software for managing the grid plus storage solutions.
Okay, thank you, Yonadav.
Sure. I think that Sarit mentioned it before. Anybody, in order to succeed in this market, especially the power market, anybody that has a vision and has the ability to assist us in entering this kind of market, new market, opening basically doors for global market and global players.
On my end, anyone that sees the US as a target market, specifically Middle America, and would like to get some good advice, support, connections, I'll be happy to support.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for